What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. And break down what the news is saying about Tesla, what you should be watching for as time goes on, and what are some very important pieces of data and earnings to be watching for the week. But before I break anything down all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed up to 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks, and the offer ends very soon. Anyways, now let's break down what's going on with the markets. Looking at Tesla as a reminder, we had Tesla's earnings after the market closed on Wednesday, and that's what started all of this. Tesla had this very, very big sell off, which continued into Thursday, right? And this was because of the fact that Tesla told us that their growth for 2024 is likely going to be less than that of 2023. Tesla's also entering this different stage where they're trying to prepare for a new potential model coming out for mid 2025 or later. And also, like when they're in the growth phase, it takes them even longer to get ready for the preparations. On top of that, with slowing demand and such, there's been a lot of fear with Tesla because of the price cuts and their margins just getting eaten away. And Tesla also missed on earnings technically. So, we got this big sell off. Tesla, however, did attempt to rebound as we predicted on Friday. And then after that, it came back down. It still managed to try to hold above this 180 support. So it's showing some life. But the question now remains, is Tesla going to maintain this structure? Are we going to hold this for an extended period of time? Or are we about to see this thing just collapse and start crashing to these new lows? I'll be breaking down more information about this later on. But let me first talk about some news for the markets and some very important stuff. So for tomorrow, it's going to be Monday, January 29th. Okay, we have the Dallas Fed Manufacturing Index in the morning, the 3 month and the 6 month bill auctions. All of this is coming out a couple of hours before the market opens, right at 7:30 a.m. Then 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. All the data is out, and after that, there's not really anything else coming out. We also don't have Fed speakers because the Fed is going to be in their period of silence, and the reason for that is because of this. So for Tuesday, we have some jobs numbers coming out, not to mention consumer confidence and then house prices. This is all going to be important data, but this is all going to be in preparation for the last day of the month, Wednesday, January 31st, which is going to be very important because don't forget, guys, we have the FOMC meeting and we have Jerome Powell giving a speech on Wednesday. That's going to be huge, so make sure you're prepared for that just to be safe. All right, but until then, things become a lot more intense starting on Tuesday for the markets. Tomorrow is Monday. It's not going to be that crazy, just some minor pieces of data, and the market's just going to be getting ready. For earnings, it's going to be very minor for Monday. Tomorrow's Monday. We have SoFi in the morning, just a couple of banks in the morning, nothing too big. But going into aftermarket close, we just have a couple of others like Cliffs and then Supermicro. So very, very minor earnings for Monday. SoFi is probably going to be the only one I really pay the most close attention to, if anything. And then later on, I just want to mention that Tuesday through Thursday are when things become more intense, specifically Tuesday and Thursday. So Tuesday is when we have Pfizer, GM, and just a few others. Then after market close, we have Microsoft, AMD, and Alphabet, aka Google. That's going to be very important. Wednesday, we don't really have much. We have Boeing, just a few airlines, and then Aflac, and just a few others as well. This is important because Wednesday's a little bit more quiet because we have FOMC, we have Jerome Powell giving a speech. So it's still going to be a big day, just not as crazy for earnings. And Thursday is going to be insane because we have Apple, we have Amazon, we have Meta all announcing earnings at a very similar time period after the market closes. So crazy stuff are coming up for the markets. Make sure you're prepared for that. Right now, the fear and greed index is at extreme greed. This is when the market generally is in a topping process. This does not mean the market's going to crash tomorrow. It doesn't mean the market has to start sinking extremely hard. This just means that you have to be a little bit careful as the market approaches these extremes. Same thing with market momentum. Two last things I just want to talk about on this would be the put and call positioning. This is transitioned back to extreme greed, which means that we're seeing a lot of these puts being closed. It's been happening for the last week and a half. Lots of puts are being closed and calls are being bought up, which is why the ratio is actually dipping, meaning there's a lot more calls than puts in the ratio. More calls are being bought and people are becoming a lot more greedy. When institutions basically close their puts, they hedge by buying shares. This is what helped drive SPY in the markets up. Okay, and that's why we're extremely greedy right now. But you want to be very careful because when you're this greedy, when the market's this greedy, generally that's not the time to be buying at these high levels. Not financial advice, but it's the truth. That's my view, at least for now. There are some opportunities. There's some like anomalies such as like Tesla dipping, but I'm just talking like in general for like many tech stocks, for SPY, S&P, if you're trying to buy up here, be very careful, non financial advice. Market volatility is also very neutral. We're kind of shifting between the 50-day moving average, which means the VIX is indecisive, just like the dollar. I'll show you guys more about that a little bit later. For headlines, I'm not really seeing much for Tesla. Basically, let me actually start off with this. This is still making a lot of headlines, even like right now. The 200,000 Teslas are recalled. That's actually not true. First off, it's just a software instability that's basically causing this. And that's what they're basically saying. And Tesla's already fixed this. They actually announced that they just released a software update to fix this. So, the headlines, they're still showing this headlines, but they're in very, very small text is where they actually released this. The company has already released an over-the-air software update free of charge to fix the situation. In my opinion, it doesn't make sense for them to keep doing this. It just shows lots of media bias. Now, the Tesla Model 3 long range delivery estimates have been pushed out to March to April 2024, so a slight delay. Not the best of news for Tesla. This happens though when Tesla has these like backlogs and they have like the production changes that have been going on. That's what Tesla was talking about. So this is just normal, not the end of the world. They adjusted the delivery time earlier this month, and then they did the same thing again. So it is what it is. But as long as it comes out, it's going to be fine. Shouldn't be the worst of news. But the media is going to make it seem much, much, much worse. You can see right here, updated 2024 Model 3 deliveries have been delayed. It happens, guys. It's going to be okay. Not the end of the world, in my view. So, what's going on with some more data for Tesla? I just want to mention that we basically have volume at 107 million, a little bit below average. And then the short volume has been going up a little bit, just a little bit more short volume relative to before. I also want to call out that the price price ratio is now at this low, which means Tesla has been heavily underperforming relative to the market, and there's still a lot of relative weakness to it. It is attempting to rebound, however, so we're going to see if Tesla can try to maintain its structure. Goldman Sachs has come out and they gave Tesla a neutral rating. Same thing with Citigroup. They're giving lots of them are giving Tesla neutral ratings. JP Morgan, however, said Tesla's going to underperform. They are saying that they gave it an underweight rating. And then Edward Jones gave it a Tesla a hold rating, saying just hold it. They downgraded Tesla from a buy to a hold. So some changes happened from these analysts. Most of them are pretty neutral on Tesla now. We're not getting as much, positively from them. But this is honestly, in my opinion, for the long term, I would say I'm still very, very bullish. But a lot of them are sometimes talking about just like 12-month forecasts, making some adjustments. So it is what it is. But my view of Tesla has not changed despite that. We still have high volatility around 11 a.m., also at 2 p.m., and then 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's pretty much it for data. Nothing else is too significant or too crazy. Now let's just talk about the charts. How is Tesla looking? So I want to mention that Tesla's attempting to base right here at 180. It's trying to curl a little bit, but it's approaching this very, very key resistance up here. Now, as this thing is trying to bounce, you're going to be watching for a potential change in structure. Are we about to start making higher highs and higher lows, or are we about to collapse? And the levels are very simple. If Tesla breaks between 184.4 to 185, if we manage to break that resistance, the next target is going to be at 186.5 to about 187, all the way up here. And if we break above that, there is potential for this thing to get very close to 190 if we get above this 187.5 resistance. If we get a rejection and Tesla comes down, watch 182.5 as key support. If we lose this, there's going to be a risk of it coming down to 180. Now, 180 is going to be critical for Tesla. If we end up losing 180, I think that Tesla has a risk of hitting 175 in the future. Now, it doesn't mean that just because we lose it temporarily, it doesn't mean we're just going to crash straight down to 175 immediately. But I think that later on down the line, it's going to have a lot more downside if we fail to hold 180. That's why it's very important. Excuse me. I think that 175 will eventually be tested if we lose 180. So, what do I think is going on with the chart? I think that Tesla is forming a flag right here, a potential flag could be formed, but we have to see how Tesla holds these levels. The news is going to affect Tesla for tomorrow, so we'll have to see if it could hold this structure right now. Can it hold this support right here? And do we get some kind of rejection? My best prediction would be that Tesla attempts to hold this for now. And then we're going to be watching to see how the earnings affect it. And also the news. The news is another factor I can't always predict, but the most likely possibility would be us kind of like popping like this when we open. again, getting a little pop, coming back down like this, back down to 183 or so, and just trying to hold up temporarily. And then we'll have to see if we could try to hold this, because if the market starts dropping, if the market kind of like holds decently, we could see Tesla hold at 185. But if the market starts sinking, we might see Tesla break this and actually retrace like this. There's going to be a risk of it coming back down and kind of failing here. If the market gets that like starts sinking, and if Tesla ends up following the trend. So you want to be very careful. But my best prediction would be we kind of pop when we open, which is what we did on Friday. We come back down, we kind of bounce a little bit, and we either hold above 185, or we end up losing it towards the end if the whole market starts sinking, dragging Tesla down to the lower 180s, all the way back down like that. So it's going to be one of those two. That's most likely what I see happening to Tesla. And that's the most probable outcome looking at the current trend and also this potential flag that's forming. Now, why am I talking about the market potentially cooling off? Because we're getting some signals that suggest that's a real possibility. So if you look at SPY, right? SPY had this nice uptrend. You guys could see this. We were forming basically what appears to be uh, a bullish wedge. And then what happened was SPY basically failed to hold it, failed to maintain this. We actually got a break right here, especially during the after hours. So it's starting to show some weakness. Now, if you look at SPY on the 4-hour time frame, you will notice that SPY is looking a little bit weaker, and we're actually approaching 485 right now. If we lose that, I mean, there's more potential downside coming. Not 485, it's 486. That's where the 20 EMA is going to be by tomorrow. So if we lose 486, things are going to go south pretty quickly. Here are the levels on SPY. If we lose 486, we turn a lot more bearish, and I think 484.5 is coming, which is this wick down here. If we're bullish, you want to see this thing break 488. If we break that, 489.04 is a possibility, followed by 490. What do I think SPY is doing? Since we failed to hold this yellow line right here, we actually got a break below that. I think that it's favoring the bears a little bit more. They're going to likely try to pop it, grab liquidity up here, maybe retest this trend line, then reject it. I think at the very least 486 is coming. Could drop a little bit more, and we might see some sideways price action after that. But I do anticipate a little cool off that could be coming. On the QQQ, it's the same thing. We have this bearish structure. We've been selling off, making lower highs and lower lows. Could this be forming a flag? It's always a possibility, but I'm not seeing it just yet. It's actually looking a little bit weaker, especially since we failed to hold this support right here. So just like SPY, the QQQ is also looking a little bit weaker. Excuse me, we're looking a little bit weaker right here. We also have this wick down here. So I think that if we basically lose 422.5, there's 421 and then 420 coming. 420 is critical support, because if we lose that, a bigger drop is going to be coming all the way down to potentially 416. If we're bullish, you want to see it get up of 426. If we break that, 427 to 429 are possibilities. What do I see from this? We might pop and we open, retest 425, reject, shop around, and eventually make our way down towards 422. And I think we might end up losing that. We could get very close to lower levels like 421 or so down here. So look for a little pop and drop. This looks a little bit weak, so just be very careful. This favors the bears slightly more. How about for Nvidia? Nvidia is favoring the bears a little bit, just slightly more, but sometimes Nvidia could surprise you, so just be careful in playing it. We have resistance at 612 and 616, and we have support at 607. If we lose 607, a bigger drop is coming to 602 to 600. Now, NVIDIA also happens to have an inverse cup and handle, right? We have this cup right here, a handle forming. There's a very good chance NVIDIA might actually sink a little bit lower, so you want to be very careful with the potential cup and then handle that's forming. Might pop when we open, starts selling off a little bit. I think it's going to be making its way down to 602 and then trade sideways from there. So watch for this inverse cup and handle carefully and see if this pans out for NVIDIA. For Apple, in my opinion, this is looking a little bit weaker because we have this unfilled gap down here. I think that Apple will pop, grab liquidity, and make its way down, all the way down towards 191.25 to 190.5. And I think that Apple might trade sideways in that 190.5 to 191.25 area. I think we have a gap to fill, so there's going to be some downside. So watch that very, very carefully. That's it for now for the main five. I'll just go over a couple of others before I conclude this video. With that being said, guys, because the market is at risk of potentially selling off a bit, this might have a negative effect on Tesla, so just be very careful. Just for a couple of others, SoFi has its earnings, so we'll see what happens. So I can't really promise anything. We have to just see how earnings go for that. For the IWM, it looks to me like it's going to test the 50. I think that's 194.84 is going to be coming. Look for a little retracement on the IWM, then a bounce, so watch that very carefully. On Microsoft, this thing is on a very strong uptrend. Technically, there's no sign of it breaking down. Could backtest to 402, then trade sideways. We'll see if that breaks. If it loses this key 20 EMA, then watch for this thing to actually pull back a little bit before its earnings. If it holds this, it's going to be fine, so just be a little careful. My gut is telling me it's going to test 402, and we'll see if this breaks. If it loses that, 400 is coming next, so watch and see if it holds. For AMD, we have a nice uptrend. We also have earnings coming out very soon, just like Microsoft. I think it's going to be testing 175, and then it might trade sideways just like it did on Friday. We'll have to see if it holds that. If it loses that, it's going to retrace to 167 to 170. So watch 175 very carefully. That's going to be key, and might test that very soon. The VIX is just trading sideways, not really doing a whole lot right now. So we'll have to see if this thing can try to break. It's just shuffling around the 50 day, excuse me, the 50-day moving average. So we'll have to see. I mean, it's very indecisive right now, not really telling us much. Same thing with the SQQQ. SQQQ is showing some strength, a little sideways yesterday, sideways on Friday, excuse me, but it looks like it might push a little higher. So this is showing some potential, which could be bearish for the QQQ. Dollar index kind of flat right now, not really doing much, so it's very choppy. Still waiting for that to develop. Coinbase is showing some life. It's actually basing at this 118 area. Could it come down to this wick area 121, then bounce and push up? Or are we about to slow down? We have resistance right here. That's the only issue with this. We have resistance around this 128. We rejected 3 times off of it, so it might pop here and then come back down. So look for a little retracement possibly on Coinbase if it fails to break 128. If it does break it, we could be pushing for 130, but I think that there's a very good chance it pops and then drops. So be a little careful on Coinbase. For Google has a nice uptrend, but it's a little overbought. We might see it actually retrace towards 151.5 and then bounce. So watch that very carefully. It also depends on earnings. Uh, Amazon, in my opinion, is going to likely retest 157, then try to bounce. I think 157 is coming, so watch it retrace just a bit, then trade sideways. Meta also might retrace a little bit towards 390, then trade sideways after that. We'll have to see how well it holds, but just know it's on a strong uptrend. It might retrace just a bit and bounce, so watch that very carefully. With that being said, guys, I'm not saying the market's crashing. I'm saying that there's a risk of the market pulling back just a little bit, and this might have a big effect on Tesla. So I just wanted to warn you about that. With that being said, please have a great day. Remain calm, cool, and collected. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you and peace out.